Hello and welcome back to this video. Now in the last video we already covered the basics of visualization in Power BI, and now let's actually create our first report. So what we like to do is, I like to do is at first go to the view option here, and under view I'd like to choose a specific theme for my report. Because I don't like the default one, I personally will use now this dark one, which is the innovate. So let's actually click this here, and then my whole report will now switch to this dark theme here. So if you do not like it, feel free to choose any other kind of visualization or theme you want to use here, right? Or stick to the default one, totally up to you. Now, what I personally like is I like to have a header for my report. So I go under Insert here, and we already know that there's a text box. So we can simply click on the text box here, and then I type in some text. Let's say Power BI, the easy way, right? So I highlight this, and then maybe increase the size and say I'd like to have a 20 here. Okay, and maybe make it bold, and then also let me increase the size a little bit. So click on it and increase the size. So hover over that, make it bigger so that it fits into one line. So then I make this smaller here, and of course I can also make this a little smaller, and I have my header. And if I want to drag it, I hover over that, and then I have these three dots, and one option would be simply to select three dots and then drag it somewhere and place it. Now currently it's probably not in the middle, so I highlight, you can see it's still highlighted. Then I can go to the formatting option here and simply say align, and I would like to align this here, distribute horizontally, simply to place it in the middle. Okay, so far so good. So click somewhere in the blank canvas to deselect it. So the next thing I'd like to do is I'd like to create additional visuals or remove certain of them. For instance, the profit is currently here a pie chart. Now we can't see too much here. Of course we can use an additional field in the legend. Currently you can see under for the pie chart, if you select it, there's only something in the profit. That is why you can see a pie chart with a profit, but it's not split by anything. But if, for instance, I tick here, hover over that and tick the product, you'll see that Power BI will automatically put the product into the legend. And I also get here a pie chart here with all the different kinds of products I have and their sales numbers. But still, I do not really like this pie chart. What I like to have instead is a donut chart. I prefer the donut chart. So that's why I select the pie chart first, and then I go under visualizations here and say I'd like to see my donut chart. So I click on donut chart here, and now I can see here donut chart, which tells me now here the amount of which has been sold for each product, as well as the percentage figure of the total. And you know that you can adjust each kind of visual. So under the formatting option, select the visual first, like in this case here the donut chart. Then I go under the formatting option here, and then I can adjust here what I want. For instance, for the legend, just in case you don't want to see it on the right, you can always also change the position here. For instance, choose bottom, then the legend is on the bottom. Or choose bottom center, then it's in the bottom center here. So this is something you can adjust here. Place it on the position you want to see it, right? So next to that, you also see, if I make this smaller again here, that you have the option here under data labels, if you tick this, to justify or specify, what kind of label style you want to have. So if you click this, do you want to see the category? If you tick category, then I can only see the category itself. So if I use this one, for instance, I would not really need a legend, actually, right? But as I said, this at the end of the day, you are in control. You can decide what you want to see. But if you tick, for instance, the all detail label, you would see everything. You would see the product itself, then the amount of which has been sold, as well as the percentage of total. So this label allows you actually really choose the specific option you want to see. So because I already have a legend, which tells me about the products, and I only have here 4 products, that is why I would only like to see the data value and the percentage of total. So I take this one here. And the displays are currently set to auto. That is why you can see here, for instance, 2K or 1K. So if you do not like that, you can also go here under auto and change it to none. Then you would see the complete number in here. And also it's a little bit too small maybe for you. So simply go on a text size here option and then say I'd like to see this maybe in 15. So you can see a bigger size here, right? So this is totally adjustable to the specific needs you want and have. Also the colors. If you don't like the default colors for this theme, you can either choose the colors here. If you go to data colors and choose the individual colors here for the products, or you adjust the color for the theme itself, right? Go back to the theme option here, to your current theme, which is currently selected, and then you go to customize current theme, and then you can adjust the default colors because they are currently set to this blue, yellow, this dark blue, and this green, and that is why, because these are the first 4 colors, this is why those colors also appear here. But if you would change it here, then you can also change it here. So for me now, that's fine. I have my first visualization here. I can make it maybe a little bit smaller here. That's also fine for me, like that. So I have a little bit more space in my report. Then for my sales, I currently only see a sales bar in my total sales, but maybe I'd like to have here additional information. So I could use, again, one of my options here. So for instance, I have regions here. I could tick on region, and I would see the sales for each of my different kinds of regions I have, right? That, for instance. And just in case I don't like this visualization, once I'd like to see this rather switched, so 90 degrees, simply go under visualizations here and go to here, like this one here, and simply switch it around, clustered bar chart, and now you can see you have it down there from top to bottom, right, for the regions. Maybe you prefer this visualization, then you can do it like that as well. And also, if you like to increase the size, here simply drag and drop it and play around with that. Like this, for instance, right? Then I still have my map here. So for me, this is fine. I like to keep this, so I simply drag this maybe down, place it somewhere here, and also it helps you, the red line, always keep this in mind, it allows you to align your visuals exactly the way you want to have them. I have a table here, and I can use this table here, also drag it somewhere where I want to place it, depending on where you want to place it. Of course, that's also fine. If you don't like a table at all, of course, you can always switch the visualization itself, right? Simply choose the specific one you want up there and then switch it. So interesting for me, for instance, is also some kind of KPIs. So for instance, I have profit here and I have sales, right? So what I could do is I can either use cards. So if I click on card here first and then select a numerical field like sales, I would see a total number of the sales figure here. This as a KPI card, for instance, right? But instead of a card, I could also use a multi-card. So multi-row card, if I click on this one to change the original card, I can click on it, and now I can see a multi-card, which tells me here which is a number as well as the sales. And the difference between the card itself and the multi-card is I can add additional fields. Like for instance, I could then drag and profit here, and then I would see also the sales number as well as the profit here. I can drag here also the price, and then I would see also the price here, right? But for the price, probably more interesting would be not the sum, but the average, because I do not want to sum up the prices, the individual prices. I want to see the average price, for instance, right? I can tick this, and then you can see here you have the average price, also as a KPI here. And depending how, if you stretch the visual to the side, then if they fit next to each other, they are placed here. If you make it smaller, so they do not fit, then you can also increase it down, and then they would appear below each other, right? So depending on how you want to actually how big you increase the size of your visual, you can then justify and place it somewhere like that. And as always, if you want to customize it, just take a look at the formatting options here and take a look what's available for you. Like here, do you want to see the data categories? If you untick this, then you won't see the data categories. But of course, then you would probably not know, or your end consumer would not know what is actually this 44,000 relating to, right? That is why categories, you should actually tick them on, but just see that you can actually adjust it here if you want to adjust it. So this is that, and actually really already a report for you which you have created. As I said, maybe you do not like to have the table, or you would actually create another visual. Simply click the table maybe inside here like that, and then you have a little bit more space here for your report. And what could be interesting is also another visual which you can try out, which in my case is this funnel here. So I first please always make sure you first click somewhere on a blank canvas to deselect everything. Then you can click on the funnel here, click on the funnel, and then say, I'd like to see my sales. This is the first part of the funnel. And then, for instance, the profit here, which is the next one. And this funnel visualization is interesting because you can see it already. It gives you not only the total numbers here, it also gives you at the bottom what is the margin. So it calculates basically the profit margin directly in the visualization itself. So based on the 100% of sales, this number here, what is this 6K in profit we generate? And it relates to 16.4% of total sales. So this would be our profit margin, right? So this is something we can use here directly as well. And as I said, don't be fixed on the visualizations I'm using here. I'm just showing you a few basic things which you can use. Try out other things if you want, but also we'll cover a few of them later on as well. So this could be one option to visualize it like that. And now if I would like to filter my report, because currently we already have created our first report and it wasn't too hard, hopefully, right? But now we would like to filter our report. And what about creating a filter here? So there is a so-called slicer in Power BI, which is this one. So you can click on it, and again, make sure you first click somewhere on the blank canvas, so you deselect everything. then you click on the slicer option here. I click on slicer, and then maybe I like to slice by, let's say, by my regions. So I can tick the region here, click on it, and now I have a slicer here. And if I tick something here, for instance north, you see that now all my data changes to north. If I click on east, all my data changes to east. And then if I tick, for instance, on south, south. So this is totally dynamic. If I want to click on several of them, I can hold my control key and click on the next one. And then I would have selected north and south in my case. A little bit difficult to see maybe for you because of the dark background, but that's actually happening. If I want to remove my filter, I can always click here to clear selection, and then I would see the whole data again. The great thing about this kind of filter is that you can also customize it. Always remember, go to the formatting option here, and then choose different kinds of options that are available here. For instance, one thing here is if you go to General, you have the option to change the orientation. And the default is vertical, but at least from my point of view, what's more appealing to my eyes is the horizontal one. So if I choose here horizontal, then I get these options like that. And I can make this smaller here, like that. And now I have, if I drag this maybe on top, I have it like that, where I can hover over it and I can select something. For instance, if I click on West, I can see my data for West. In this case, United States and Canada, right? Or if I click on South, I can see South. And also realize that you can always change here the different kinds of background colors, for instance, right? So currently I have it dark, well, this gray. This is simply referring to the font size here. But maybe then also under background, you can turn this on. And then for the color, you can choose a different kind of background color. For instance, I could use maybe a more gray, then I would have it like that. Just in case you want to make this a little bit more stand out, so it's easier to spot here. Or you, of course, you have chosen a different theme, then it might also already be easier to see. But I just want to say you can adjust this the way you want it. Now, next to these slicers, which we can create, and by the way, we can create as many of them as we want, and for all the fields we have, we can create a slicer. But besides using the slicer to filter our data, also we can click on anywhere on our visualizations. For instance, if I select here region West, and I click on it, I can see that all my data now is filtering to region West. If I untick it, you can see original data. If I go with South, it works exactly the same way. I can see the data for South. If I click within my country map here, for instance, on North America, in this case United States, if I click on it, all my data is now filtering to United States. So hopefully you can see that. And I mean all the visuals are changing based on this. The KPIs I have, the table I have, and all the other things as well. And this is a great thing. So each visual is actually acting as a filter. So you can use slicers, as we have done up here, but you can also use the visual itself. So if I click here, for instance here, I can see my product PlayStation, I can select it, and then my data gets filtered to PlayStation. And I can see only the sales, the profit, and so on related to PlayStation. Now, one last thing I'd like to mention here is you might see that the filter itself is not, or the visuals itself are not filtering completely. What I mean by that is you can take a look at West, and you can see there's something, a part of West is highlighted, which is related to the sales of PlayStation in region West. The other part is currently grayed out. So it's still visible, but it's grayed out. And the same is true here for our funnel chart, right? You can see it's 9,000, but it's still, the rest is still visible, but it's grayed out. This is the default behavior normally in Power BI. Now, maybe you do not like this. Maybe you want to, or prefer actually a view where when you select something from a visual, then all the other visuals get filtered completely. So you do not want to see it highlighted. You want to see that, in this case, this 9,000, for instance, would spread across the whole visualization, here, across the whole size, and the profit as well. And also these bars, that in this case, for the region, for instance, if you click on PlayStation and you see that the region only, the PlayStation only sold in region West and South, and then you don't want to see region East and North. You want to filter this completely. So if you prefer this behavior, what you can always do is you select the visual first, and then you take a look under, in this case here, I think it's format or data drill, I need to check. It's under format here, okay. Under format, there's an edit interactions, and if you tick this, then you see that little icons appear here. This filter icon, this, in this case, highlight icon, and the basically none icon. And this allows us to really customize for each visual what should happen if we filter. So, for instance, currently, in this case, the donut chart is selected, and all the other visuals display these options here. Now, for instance, if I say for my sales, instead of highlighting, which is the default behavior, I switch it to filter. Watch what happens. So if I click on filter here, and now if I untick the edit interaction to go to my original view again, and now I click on PlayStation, you see exactly that now we only have South and West, and the other get filtered out completely. Now this is still not the case for our funnel chart. The reason is that we need to tick it again. You don't need to untick it, you can leave it like that, but you need to go to edit interactions, and then I'd also adjust the interaction for the funnel chart. So instead of only highlighting what we currently have, which is the filtered data, we can also go to filter it, tick it, and then you see now it's stretching. And the parts of data which is not related to PlayStation get filtered out completely. So this is the behavior you can adjust here for all the visuals. Like that, and now you can see it's filtered completely. This is still not true for the other visuals. So if, for instance, if I click on West here, you see that this is still highlighting. It's not filtering. But this can be adjusted as well, because you can see, you click on Edit Interactions, you select the visual, and then you can do something for the other visuals. So if you want to filter it, when you click here, and you want to filter the, in this case, the funnel chart, also do the same, click here, and then the funnel chart gets filtered. So you can do this individual for each visual. Also, what you could do, for instance, if you want to filter the data, but I would always like to see, here for my KPIs, the total amount of sales, the total profit, and the average price, even though I filter something. Then what I could do is, I need to, of course, first select the visual, and now I simply hover over this one, and simply go here and say, none. The none option means that no matter what I filter, so if I filter to South, I would still always see here the total data. So this data now gets never filtered if someone clicks on this visual. This, of course, is not true if I click here. So if I click here in the visual, you can see that the data still filters. So you would need to adjust this for each visual. But this is a really powerful thing, at least from my point of view, because you can really be specific. What do you want to do? If someone filters with the visual, do you want to highlight the other visuals, which is a default behavior? Do you want to filter the visuals, which you can adjust? Do you want to filter only specific visuals? Or do you don't want to filter the data at all? This also you can adjust here. And if you're done with all of that, then simply go back in here, select it, go to the formatting option one more time, and untick this edit interactions. Because if you untick it, then these options disappear. Untick it, and you can see that now you got the original report back. But this is something you can do yourself. So depending on what you want to do, you can use slicers for that to filter the data, or you can also use, of course, here the visualization directly and filter the data. It's also possible. And when you do that, you can just specify exactly for all the other visuals what you want to do. Do you want to filter them? Do you want to highlight them? Or do you don't want to filter them at all? And this is the power of Power BI, and that's actually it for our first report. And hopefully you see it exactly the same as I do it. It's Power BI the easy way. So congratulations at this point. You've created your first report in Power BI. And as I said, hopefully this was not too difficult for you. Hopefully this was the easy way. Until then, best guys.